Hi guys, it's Josh, and I'm here today to talk about my top favorite movies of 2023. I don't have a top 10, I don't have a best of. These are the movies. I keep a little ongoing list throughout the year. I keep a diary in Letterboxd of every movie that I watch, and then if I really, really enjoy one and I know that's a memorable experience and that's going to be in my top faves, I put it on a list. So I have 12 movies on this list from 2023. I enjoyed lots of movies, but these are the ones that I remembered to put on the list because they were that good. A little caveat before I begin as well. I have not yet seen Napoleon. I'm seeing that tonight. And Ridley Scott has a very good track record with me, so I'm expecting to enjoy Napoleon very much. And I have not seen Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things yet. And everything I hear about that movie and my ongoing relationship with the films of Yorgos Lanthimos makes me think that there should be a spot reserved for that movie, but I have not seen it yet. I don't know when I'm going to get to see it, so I got to get this video out. Here I go. These are my top favorites of 2023 in chronological order because that's the way the list is, and it keeps me from having to rank things, which is a useless endeavor. So here we go. The first movie I truly enjoyed seeing in a movie theater in 2023 was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The Spider-Verse movies, they don't really need a champion. This is Lord and Miller. This is a bunch of talented directors and animators and producers making some of the most exciting animation of the 21st century. These movies defy all common knowledge about blockbusters of universally known IPs by giant corporations. These movies are inventive. They're crazy. They're daring. The animation is stunning. The mix of styles in this movie, you've got a mix of frame rates, characters animated at different frame rates, and just an amazing achievement technically, which is one thing, but they're also funny and engaging and good. Yes, this one was long. This one also is a cliffhanger, which people don't love, and also there was some not great news about the crunch that some of the lower tier filmmakers, the animators and designers experienced, which is not what you want to hear. But the finished product is undeniably an achievement and one of the most fun experiences I had at the movies this year. The next film that I enjoyed seeing in a movie theater in 2023 was You Hurt My Feelings, directed by Nicole Holofcener, I believe is the pronunciation of that name. This is a small indie comedy. You may not even remember that this exists. You may have never known that it exists. But it was a vehicle for Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Tobias Menzies. They were the stars of this movie, a very small comedy for grown-ups, a very, very rare thing these days. It's a very small stakes story about a married couple. It's been a long time since I saw it. I think they're in New York. They are in a city. It's modern times, and there's a therapist and his wife, a writer, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She overhears her husband saying that he doesn't really like her writing in a particular book that she's working on, and it's about the fallout of what happens when you find out that your partner, your life partner, your spouse, secretly was lying to you about being supportive of something, and that's it. It explores that idea. The writing is sharp. It's a very fun, breezy watch. It's not a wacky comedy. It's kind of like a smart people comedy, but I really enjoyed it, and it was refreshing to see. Okay, so the next three movies on my list are just blockbusters that they don't really need all that much discussion, I guess, except to throw in my 2 cents. The next one was the next in line is John Wick 4. I am a huge fan of this series. Even though I don't like guns, I'm not really a big action movie guy. There's something about the kind of stylized world of John Wick. I've talked about this in a sketchy episode when I drew a picture of Keanu as John Wick, that for some reason these movies get kind of grandfathered in or snuck in through the side door into my brain. I enjoy them. It's ridiculous, but this idea that there's this world of assassin on assassin violence so that no innocent people are getting hurt, they kind of throw that out the window in this when they have they have a big shootout by the Arc de Triomphe in France, and there's civilians getting hurt in that scene. But anyway, a lot of people thought this one was bloated, or they didn't like where it goes. I'm not going to spoil it, but a big thing happens at the end, and despite which they've already announced the next sequel. But I just have a soft spot for these movies, and I had a blast watching the latest one. I don't rewatch that many movies anymore these days, but I have all the John Wick movies on 4K, and it's just like a Sunday afternoon dad thing for me. It's kind of what the Jason Bourne movies used to be 20 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever that was. Now, the next two movies in this run of blockbusters, they go together just because chronologically here they are. It's Barbie and Oppenheimer. And yes, I saw Barbie and Oppenheimer, not on the same day. I didn't make a thing out of it. I didn't announce on social media, I don't think I did, that I was going to go do a Barbenheimer. I just saw these movies because I wanted to see them. It might surprise you to hear that I think I enjoyed Barbie a little more. I liked both of these movies. They made it onto my list of top favorites. I admire the filmmaking of Oppenheimer, but it is, it's a homework movie. It's a heavy movie. It's long. I have a weird relationship with Christopher Nolan. His movies are all impressive and slick, and I really admire him, and I always want to see what he does, but some of his movies are I found Tenet to be a little oppressive and a little hard to follow and a little long. Oppenheimer is great. It's a great achievement. I think it probably is his best film. Great cast, really good script, really interesting way of dealing with this material, but I just found it weighty, and I don't, people are split on the Florence Pugh material. I love Florence Pugh, but the subplot and the way some of that more adult material was handled in the movie, it kind of made me laugh out loud when I first saw the movie, and I've heard people defend it pretty well, and I've heard other people rip it to shreds. I don't know. I like it. It's a good movie. Barbie is a huge surprise. A Lego movie level surprise to me that you could do something like this with an IP, this kind of corporately controlled and ubiquitous and traditional and old fashioned. The fact that Mattel and Warner Brothers let this movie be made is remarkable. And yeah, it's a preachy feminist comedy, but it's an entertaining movie first and foremost. And I saw it by myself, and then I saw it with my family, and it is so annoyingly good. It's just well cast. It's funny. It never takes itself too seriously. It's a little too long, like maybe every movie is. But the fact that there's a preachy feminist comedy made out of Barbie that is this good is crazy. It's nuts. They're going to try to do it again. It's not going to work. It's going to be diminishing returns. Not only are Warner's and Mattel going to try and do this again, but now everybody, just like with Lego Movie, there's going to be more IP product movies like this, and they're not going to be as good as this one. But the fact that they let Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach make this movie, and that it came out this kind of pure, is what it is. I had a great time. I like it. Next is another little comedy that did not get the exposure that it deserved, and maybe you've heard of it or not. It's called Bottoms, and it is a high school comedy. It's directed by Emma Seligman, and it stars Rachel Sennott and Ayo Edebiri. I believe I did not pronounce those names correctly. I believe these filmmakers also made another movie a couple years ago called Shiva Baby, which also I think had Rachel Sennott in it, but it was co-written by her as this one is also. I believe I'm off the cuff here, but I think that's correct. This is a new kind of high school comedy. It has a little bit in common with something like Booksmart from a few years back, but Booksmart was a little more grounded than this. This is a insane, next level, wacky movie where football players wear their uniforms in class all the time, where everybody is like a cartoon character, but yet there's this strange, compelling dynamic to the relationships. It's an R-rated comedy. It's not for kids. It's not for everybody. But I recommend Bottoms. I do feel a little old when I watch a movie like this. It's definitely not aimed at me. But this one is a lot of fun if you want to see a raunchy high school comedy in a completely new vein, in a completely new groove. Check it out. Next is Beau is Afraid by Ari Aster. And this is a divisive movie. This is an A24 movie. It's not really a horror movie. It's a nightmare movie. It's an anxiety nightmare. This even among people who like artsy, weird anxiety nightmares, this was a divisive movie because it's 3 hours long. The opening hour is like a contiguous anxiety sequence that just ramps up and is some of the most amazing filmmaking I've ever seen. It's hilarious to me. I have inherited a bit of anxiety generationally, and so I have this I have insomnia, I have anxiety, and so there's a lot of stuff in this movie that if you don't have anxiety, it's just going to seem abrasive and ugly and weird and what is this? It resonated for me. And then there's a certain point in the movie where it turns into kind of a road adventure and an episodic, almost like an Odyssey. And he goes through different chapters and things, and audiences were divided on some of these things. I enjoyed the ride beginning to end. I do understand why people would maybe bail halfway through, but it just happened to push buttons for me. Beau is Afraid, starring Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Ari Aster, one of my top faves. Next is Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese. This got a lot of press this year, not as much as Barbie and Oppenheimer, but it's a big deal when Scorsese makes a new movie. And this one in particular is a special one because it's kind of Scorsese getting back to the crime movie starring Leo and Robert De Niro, but at the same time, the material is tapping into some of these untold, underrepresented stories of the Osage people and the native peoples, and some people took issue with Scorsese being the one to tell these stories, but I think the movie itself, including its divisive ending, there's something that happens at the ending where the movie kind of like stops, and I'm not going to spoil what happens if you haven't seen it, but the way the final moments of the movie are presented, I think, are Scorsese acknowledging, anticipating that criticism and saying something about it. So this movie was excellent. It's long. It's dour. It's a little difficult. I didn't find it quite as oppressive as Oppenheimer because it pops a little more. It's a little more entertaining. And there's something about the stories of like stupid criminals. I felt like there was a little bit of Coen Brothers DNA in here, just in the way these guys are the dumbest guys. But here it's a real story. It's an actually true story. And you won't believe what you see. So this one is great and worth it. If you got the 3 hours, you could do worse for movie watching. The next movie I enjoyed seeing in a theater was Anatomy of a Fall, Anatomie d'un Chute by Justine Triet, which is a French and I think German or British. It's a European co-production, but most of it is in the French language. There is some English spoken in the movie as well. It stars Sandra Hüller as a woman whose husband falls out of the window of their cabin and dies, and the whole movie is an exploration of, did he kill himself? Did she kill him? Was it an accident? And there is a trial, an extended trial. It's a very methodical, procedural, grown-up kind of a movie. It has a definitive ending, meaning that the jury renders a verdict, but the film is still very much asking you what you think happened. And I really enjoyed, it's hard to enjoy, there's some very ugly content here, but I found it to be really exciting, just in the way that I haven't seen, an indie comedy for grown-ups in a while. It's been a while since I saw a European drama with subtitles in a movie theater that they actually made space for and that they actually presented. So I enjoyed that part, and it's an excellent movie. Next might be my favorite of the whole year, and I've seen it quite recently, just a few weeks ago. The Holdovers by Alexander Payne, I just saw. It is another relic of the past. It's a kind of it's not a raunchy comedy. It's just an adult comedy. And it literally invokes the feeling of like a 70s R-rated comedy, 70s or 80s. There's also elements of like a slasher. It's not a slasher movie. There's no killer in this movie. It's a very grounded movie. I'm just saying in the way that it's shot. It felt like Black Christmas or Terror Train or just in the way that it's intentionally shot like an old-fashioned movie from the late 70s, early 80s. But this movie stars Paul Giamatti as a bastard of a professor who ends up drawing the short straw and having to stay over Christmas break at a boarding school with the handful of boys who are not able to go home for the holiday. And they hate him, he hates them. But then there's also the school's cook, played by Davine Joy Randolph, who gives an incredible performance. She is a person who has had great tragedy in her life quite recently. And so this movie being kind of almost to the level of wacky comedy, but also bringing some very heavy thematic material into it. Also got to mention Dominic Sessa, who plays a student who could probably be considered the protagonist of the movie. He's one of the boys who stays over. The way these three lives in particular intersect and come together, full of surprises, great filmmaking, great writing, great performances. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I think it might be my favorite of the year. Again, I haven't seen Poor Things yet. I think that's going to be vying for the top spot as well. But you got to see The Holdovers. I think it's destined to become a Christmas classic. Maybe not at the level of A Christmas Story, because not every family can just pop this movie in and just watch it, together, but I think that the right people will remember this one, and it's gonna last. Saltburn was the next movie that I added to this list. Saltburn is a divisive movie. Again, a lot of those on here. A lot of people are kind of dismissing this. This is a film by Emerald Fennell, whose previous movie, Promising Young Woman, was also similarly divisive. This is another kind of R-rated genre movie. This one kind of in the vein of A Talented Mr. Ripley, kind of a story of an underclass individual who works his way into the life of some very wealthy people and then wreaks havoc. That's a very, very safe and spoiler-free description of what happens in this movie. Some people are dismissing this as tripe, or as just a ripoff of Talented Mr. Ripley, or as just kind of seen it before, or as whatever. I don't know. I had a great time watching it. I understand criticisms. I have some very specific and spoilery criticisms of the movie and its ending, but I can't deny that I had a fantastic time watching Saltburn. Then just this past weekend, I streamed The Killer on Netflix, David Fincher's latest film. I really wanted to see it in the theater, but it never came around near me, so I enjoyed it. I don't have a lot of put together thoughts on it. I saw it so recently, but Michael Fassbender plays this assassin, and it's kind of about the process and the day-to-day drudgery of his existence, and it's funny unexpectedly, and it's good. It's maybe not a top tier Fincher, but I had a great time watching it. I didn't see it in a theater, so maybe it shouldn't be on this list, but it was very, very good and recommended. It's sitting right there on Netflix, like so many good things are, mixed in with all the crazy weirdness of Netflix. That's my list of top favorite movies of 2023. I'm considering in 24 doing some more capsulized reviews, and like as I see movies, doing a quick review here on the channel. Maybe I will start doing that soon. Maybe I'll take that opportunity when I finally get to see Poor Things, which hopefully will be very soon. But thanks for watching. I'd love to hear what you thought of these movies and which movies were in your top faves of the year. And I will be looking forward to your comments. And I thank you a lot for watching. Josh out. Goodbye.